Attention, attention! This is a restricted area. No landing is permitted without permission. Violators will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
Where's that coming from? I see the shooter up in the tower. Over there! Ah!
What's up, Meta Nerds? This video will break down the Senate Guard, going all the way back to their Old Republic formation, understanding just how big and corrupt they became up through the Clone Wars, and their dissolution and incorporation into the Red Guard and Imperial Royal Guard, and how they returned in the New Republic. But first I want to thank this video's sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp is not a crisis line, but nor is it fluffy self-help. It's professional therapy done securely online. A modern solution to barriers that have been with therapy since its inception. Now you can cut out all the transit time and rigid schedules of a physical office, using their app to connect you to their network of 20,000 licensed therapists from all over the globe. It is cheaper and more convenient, and you can start communicating in as little as 48 hours, with sessions being done through video calls, just normal phone calls, or even through text messages. Whichever you prefer, and you will be able to find a therapist that specializes in the particular issues you want to work on, all on a much more flexible schedule. And you can even send messages to your therapist at any time. And something that I did personally was I was able to change my therapist. It was really straightforward and simple. Again, all while being much more affordable than traditional methods, and financial help is available. BetterHelp wants to make therapy as practical and straightforward as possible. Start living a happier life today, be proactive, and head down to the link in the description, where you can get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/metanerds. That's betterhelp.com/metanerds. Their exact formation date is unknown, but it is said they date back far into the Old Republic era, a time when the Republic had a powerful military. The Jedi were not reluctant warriors, but engaged in near constant war with their fallen brothers. The founders of what would grow to become the Sith Empire, an empire that often worked with the Mandalorians, a deadly combination that saw the capital sacked more than once. Before the Senate building, there was the Senate Hall, this enormous and ornate A-frame structure, which operated in the same way, with seats for representatives from all the alien worlds, a center podium for the Supreme Chancellor, but the space was also used for high-profile trials, with the podium being lined with guards to surround the accused. These guards would also line the entrances, and were dressed in a blue-colored armor, wielding shields and massive polearms. These were the earliest iterations of the Senate Guard, but were likely just ceremonial, meant to invoke the tradition that was already millennia old by 15,000 BBY, considering this time before the Sith was one of unique peace and unity. As the size of the Republic was steadily growing year after year, hyperspace lanes were being carved out in every direction, and quality of life increased with each generation. But then Sith Lord Exar Kun would force them to upgrade security. He invaded the Senate Hall to rescue his apprentice, the fallen Jedi Knight Ulrich Keldroma, killing his own former master Vodo Siaskbas in a duel, before executing the Supreme Chancellor in front of all the senators within these sacred halls. This was in 3,996 BBY, and though the hall was replaced with the Senate building, this was captured too about 300 years later. Darth Malgus led the assault on the Jedi Temple, while Darth Angral would move to the Senate with an overwhelming blitzkrieg of starfighters, war droid, and hardened Sith troopers. Once Darth Angral broke through the Republic troops in the last defense of Senate guards, the war was already won, but just for good measure, he had the Supreme Chancellor executed like the great Exar Kun did before him. 2 Supreme Chancellors killed in just 3 centuries. The shame of the Senate Guard was immortalized in the History Hollows, in the form of the Treaty of Coruscant. The surrender had to be negotiated by Republic diplomats on Alderaan, and all of this would embolden the Sith Empire for the next 3 millennia. Over this time, the Jedi, Republic military, and Senate Guard worked to increase their power and would stay ever vigilant. And as the Coruscant upper levels of the Senate District grew, along with the increasing number of new member worlds, this simple-looking guard service would become one of the most powerful organizations in the galaxy. Forged by wars and intrigue, everything from the Force Wielders feud to bitter inter-alien rivalries and plain old greed threatened the lives of all these senators. Being a galactic senator was one of the most dangerous occupations out there, and the Senate Guard quickly found themselves becoming a military police force. Evolving far past just standing at doorways, they had to become proactive in preventing these attacks. Patrolling every level of the Senate District from the Supreme Chancellor's quarters, out through the hallways, securing access to the office of each and every senator and their staff, out to the complex as a whole, and then throughout the entire district with overlapping eyes everywhere, from ships monitoring the buildings to boots on the ground within these buildings. I would speculate that like any crime-fighting organization this big, they would have a ton of undercover officers scattered throughout these places, from all sorts of species and using all sorts of tracking and listening devices, as it is stated that a bulk of their work was on fighting corruption as well. One could say that they worked as a Senate guard, and that might mean that they were the first one through the door on a raid of a terrorist apartment, or they were sitting in an office as a translator reviewing recordings for signs that a senator was being bribed, and of course anywhere in between. Many of them were veterans of the Coruscant security force, which I'll mention more in a bit, but anyone could apply to be a Senate guard. If you were CSF, you had a shorter training program, and if not, you would go through an extensive, generalized program, and upon graduation, were assigned to the Senate Guard headquarters, usually starting off just processing prisoners and assisting agents in researching active cases. The lowest rank was private, and if they moved up, they become corporals and were assigned to a specific senator, or at least a group of low-risk senators. Then came the sergeants, that planned the bodyguard detail, staffing and coordinating the movements of senators, and were responsible for the Grand Convocation Chamber, with this specific space being overseen personally by the sergeant-at-arms. A lieutenant would oversee a squad of 2 to 4 guards, while commanders had a task force of 6 to 8, and they were all led by the captain of the guard, who directly answered to a Senate committee and the Republic Judicial Department, all acting like an advisory and checks and balances kind of system. The most elite of all of them would be brought into the Senate Commando Division. For millennia, this group would be the most elite fighting force in the galaxy, from the Ruusan Reformation where the Republic military was disbanded, up to the Clone Wars. These Senate Commandos would have to pass a 4-week, grueling combat program, including specialized work with Mastiffs. They would not wear the elegant cloak and crested helmet, and by the time of the Clone Wars, they would have the same plastoid armor as the clone troopers. They would retain the blue coloring, and would use golden symbols on their armor to designate rank and leadership roles. Though even the commando helmets still retained the style of the Standard Guard, which was based on the Mandalorian Neo-Crusaders during the Mandalorian Wars, which is ironic since everything from the blue color to the robes and crest were all said to evoke the peaceful time of the Old Republic, and the promise of a unified galactic community, the exact opposite of what a Mandalorian Neo-Crusader evoked. What I make of this is that, kind of like how the romantic aspects of the European Knight were attached on later, same with those last generations of samurai, both of whom were not originally a deeply introspective, code and honor-loving pillars of morality. Originally, their armor was just a practical tool to conquer their enemies, and their behavior was very much like conquerors. Similarly, this look was blazoned into the minds of the Republic citizen, and abstracted out to symbolize power and honor, so it was adopted for these defenders of peace and democracy. Their weaponry could be just about anything depending on the mission, with different branches specializing in everything from tiny concealable blasters for deep cover to breaching charges for raids. But the robed ceremonial Senate Guard would almost always be seen with a Mark II Paladin blaster rifle, a powerful weapon with stun, single, and automatic fire modes, with a collapsible stock. They seem heavy, but it wasn't like these were used to charge up a hill, so while it might leave you with some sore traps, the weight helped it to be one of the most accurate and flat-shooting blasters out there, and cost about 2 times the DC-15A. And they were also trained in the use of force pikes, and in the Hijkata martial arts. To get around, they would use these speeders, or for more dangerous situations they had these armored assault craft, which had multiple blaster cannons and could travel even into high atmosphere to pursue suspects. And these analysis droids could be sent around or left at a scene to collect evidence, only responding to those with the right rank. Now, the Coruscant Security Force, or CSF, was their biggest and often overlapping rival, who, while they did have to deal with crime all over the planet and down into the insanely dangerous lower levels, if you asked a Senate Guard, the higher stakes of their job, and the fact that it could take them all over the galaxy to hunt down leads, as well as escorting senators and staff to thousands of different worlds, they felt like they were the Secret Service and the CSF were more like the local traffic cop. Despite the rivalry, I should point out that the CSF also had their own SWAT, anti-terror, and organized crime units, and by the time of the Clone Wars, they were more often seen using things like the VAAT and LAAT variants, while also likely having way higher casualty and death rates. But this is from the Senate Guard perspective, and what they could both agree on is that they didn't like the new guys. The Clone Wars brought the Shock Troopers / Coruscant Guard. The whole purpose of this division was to bridge the gap between military command and the overlapping web of coverage between the CSF and SG. And since they were also assigned to the Supreme Chancellor with his emergency powers, they would be able to cut through all the red tape and just make things happen. Though that was easier said than done, at least in principle, with there being countless instances of CSF, SG, and CG all showing up at the same crime scene claiming jurisdiction. providing a constant stream of angry holo calls to Homeworld Security Command, which would try and organize all this, as well as operate the orbital security stations that acted like ports during this time of war, controlling all movement to and from the busiest and most important planet in the galaxy. Who got control of the scene often went to the strongest ego, with Commander Orbrim talking down a shock trooper, while Tan Devo would make sure that the CSF got to investigate Senator Anaconda Farr's poisoning, which really shows his strength, as one of the things most obviously under the SG's jurisdiction was the death of a senator. This may point to their rivals exploiting the ever-increasing stories of corruption in the SG. Though nobody could really blame them for needing backup with taming the Zillo Beast, there was Captain Argus, the elite of the elite of the elite, since he had to go from low-level SG up to standing out to be selected as a commando, and then rise again to be captain of the commandos. Even his loyalty in the Republic was bought off, taking Dooku's credits to aid in the CIS rescue of Newt Gunray, though he did receive a traitor's end impaled by Ventress's blade. Then there were the attacks on Padme's life, as well as their largest failure in thousands of years, when Cad Bane took control of the executive building and threatened to blow up numerous senators, followed by the Supreme Chancellor himself being captured and nearly killed. This failure could have cost them the war, and you could imagine everyone from Jedi to Clone Trooper to the CSF beat cop all felt that this once great institution was crumbling and inept. Palpatine used this to push for the creation of the Red Guard, which might have been, well, a red flag, but he did have emergency powers, and they were failing. And what I wanted to say for this part was the fact that corruption in the SG had been growing for about 100 years at this point. These epic failures during the war were really just the last straw for people in the know. The SG had become increasingly hereditary, essentially passing down positions through several generations of families. Leadership making sure their family was hired on as much as possible, loving the social status and great pay of the upper management parts of the Guard, not to mention the job security, and just like everything else in the galaxy, it was becoming more corrupted and dragged into politics. To the point that one of the only things most senators agreed on was the fact that the Senate Guard was becoming a dangerous combo of elite military and surveillance force, corrupted by both outside money and insider nepotism, and willing to turn it all on politicians they didn't like. Their one saving factor was that they did keep everyone safe, so when they had so many high-level failures, losing that last chunk of respect, most could understand why Palpatine wanted a new guard for him personally. And to make it even less suspect, he did choose them from the ranks of Senate guards, so it just looked like these were blue robe-wearing Senate guards wearing a new uniform. And though they only carried a lightsaber-resistant force pike, some SGs still did too, so there was nothing crazy alarming there. But of course, when the Revenge of the Sith was initiated, those guards were exclusively loyal to Palpatine, and ready and willing to kill any Jedi that dared approach their benefactor. While they may not do much against Yoda, they were certainly intimidating, and at least would force the attacker to take them out first, giving Lord Sidious an advantage. And they would definitely be able to take out just about any other attacker. They were now called Royal Guards, and the Coruscant Guards stay on too, protecting the Emperor in these very first moments, and through the years with clones stationed around places like the old Jedi Temple, and even when they were eventually replaced by stormtroopers, the office of the Coruscant Guard still remained. In fact, both of these red forces would take on several different variations over the decades, and technically the Senate Guard did remain in a way, but everything was changed about them from their armor. Though still blue, it was designed like their Red brothers, though interestingly you could see the Old Republic era Mandalorian influence in both, and their job was just an extension of the Royal Guards, and now were just the Senators' captors. The Imperial Senate stuck around for about 20 years, until just before the Battle of Yavin.
Imperial Senate?
The Imperial Senate will no longer be of any concern to us. I have just received word that the Emperor has dissolved the Council permanently.
But with each year, the senators felt more and more like they were just props, and these supposed Senate guards were really just their captors, and meant to be the Emperor's ear, with them everywhere they went. On very rare occasions, they would accompany stormtrooper groups in their hunt for Jedi fugitives, being far superior than the Bucketheads, but still far less than the Royal Guard or Inquisitors. Shortly after the Battle of Endor, the New Republic was formed, and they wanted to restore a noble symbol of the Old Republic, but not directly mimic the corrupt Guard. So they went with these white, blue, and gold robes, while others wore gold and red helmets with these white plumes. So that's it for the breakdown. As for behind the scenes facts, originally, retired Finis Valorum was killed in a comic and probably would have been a failure of an extension of the Senate Guard, protecting chancellors even after they left office. Though not clones, maybe to streamline their categorization, they were given an alphanumeric designator, being SG and then 4 numbers. And the Museum Guard was based off the look of the Senate Guard, and they would stick around into the Imperial era. Their true owners, the Intergalactic Banking Clan, were willing to tell these guards to wait outside their gate when taking Padme into the vault. One of, if not the only place in the galaxy where they would obey a command to abandon a senator, especially the most frequently attacked senator. The Canon New Republic guards are described in Aftermath and in Legends with the Invasion Revelations comic series, while other stuff comes from the Force Unleashed, the Sith War comics, Atlas, and Guide to Warfare. If you've made it this far, the best way to help me out is to hit that like button, share the video, and comment down below. Subscribe if you want to see more, and check out the description for links to free stuff and all kinds of discounts. It all helps out the channel, as well as our Patreon and PayPal. Special shout out to our patrons, and most important of all, remember, when the guards are loyal to the leader, your republic is about to become an empire. And the Force will be with you, always.